All right, welcome to the NASCAR Live Chat with Hamm the Engine Man, and my special guest tonight is Bill Engle.
Hello,
Introduce
Dave.
yourself.
Good to be here.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
As always, because you like to partake in our music here in WAME.
Yeah, music's my therapy.
Yeah, me too. Same here, man.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait till, like, let's say Wednesday evenings, and I spend a lot of time here. Obviously, you hear me on the radio and stuff, but I spend Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday evenings here. Oh, and Monday evening, yeah.
Yeah, and you guys play the good old country music.
Yes.
Real country music.
That's right, real country music. Check us out on WAMEradio.com and on the Facebook pages, WAME Chillbillies and such. But yes, we got Bill here with us this evening, and I see some people are already commenting on our live feed on YouTube. I got so used to saying Facebook. All right, so here we go. Let me see what everybody's talking about right now. I see Chad Hyder's on there. Chad Hyder's in Ohio. And Chad, you're going to have to give me a call or something and tell us about what you got coming up here with your iRacing thing that's going on. Or it's actually not iRacing, it's PlayStation 4 racing that you're doing. So that's Chad in Ohio. Tom Robinson's up in Indiana, up in Linton, and Rachel's down in Charlotte, Rachel Rodman. And let's see, Scott Trevison's down in Florida, Daytona, Florida. We'll be going down to visit him in a couple of weeks. Tommy Foss here in Statesville. Kiki Stevenson right here in the studio. Short distance dedication. Hey, Kiki. And and Giggles, of course, the parrot. And let's see. Oh, yeah, and Paul Rodriguez is down in Port St. Lucie, Florida. So tell us where you're watching from. If you come on here, well, if they're new coming on, they won't see that I asked that question. But anyway, so how's it going with you there, Mr. Bill?
It's going very well.
Good. So we got some, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of questions coming in from the folks tuned in. But, yeah, Chad Hyder says, welcome back, Bill. Oh, and we got Liz Petrie in the studio with us and Dawn Clark over here. And as you know, I had Dawn Clark on a couple of weeks ago. She was a scorer for NASCAR back in the day, way back in the day. And Rachel Robbins says, hi, Giggles. So Scott Travis says, drone footage at Bristol was awesome. All right, we got Mike Bear tuned in. What's up, Mike? He's from Rhode Island. I guess that would be up there in the New York area. Or some of their
A little bit above New York.
Yeah, I've never been up that far. I've been to Watkins Glen, which I know you have many times too. So Tommy Foss says, shouldn't say, but watching from the car, LOL. Keep your eyes on the road there, Tommy. So yeah, I remember you from the racetrack, of course, and then I run into you here in Statesville. I'm like, man. Oh, and then at the gym, at Jet Fitness down in Mooresville. Mm. But I think my biggest memory of seeing you at the racetrack was you were always like the first in line to go through inspection. Yeah,
I owned my own business for so many years before I got into racing, and I understand time management and time is money and making money. And I would always tell my guys, come see some of those other crew chiefs would mess around all day long and be the last one to get through line. And I always wanted that time, if I went through the line and something was wrong, I'd have time to fix it without panicking, be able to do it in a methodical way.
Absolutely.
And I would tell my guys, let's get in there, get the car prepared for the race, do what we got to do, and then you will have an hour or two before the race starts to eat, calm down, settle your nerves, and so when the race starts, your mind is ready to go on the race.
Wasn't that the worst thing whenever you had to go back and get back in line for the inspection?
Man, it was terrible. And these guys nowadays, with the penalties they get, it's a job.
Yeah. And speaking of penalties, we kind of hit on this before we started the show. But it could be true and it could not be true. But if it comes out to be true, you'll be the first. You heard it here first. So we'll see. So apparently there might be a penalty issued for Chase Elliott and Joey Logano after yesterday's Bristol race for not practicing their social distancing. So.
Yeah, the guys after the race, I guess they couldn't hear each other, so they had to get within 6 feet of that perimeter so they could hear one another talk. Because I'm sure they were both commenting and complimenting each other on their driving skills there at the end of the race.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's all it is. I mean, they're just they had to get kind of close to talk about their skills on the track and the things they had issues with or whatever. So, apparently the person that made that post is no longer with that station. So,
yeah.
But you know what? I'm not an employee of NASCAR or anything, so I don't have to worry about it. So,
right.
And neither is Bill. Because you know what? Today is the first anniversary of my retirement from NASCAR. Thank you.
Congratulations.
And it's been an interesting trip for the past year, but I've made it. I've survived.
There you go.
Is life after NASCAR, which I thought for so long. Could there really be life after NASCAR? And you've been out of NASCAR for quite a while.
Quite a while now, over 10 years now.
Over 10 years.
Yeah.
And your last year as a crew chief.
Well, I don't even remember the last. Well, my last job was with Oz Automation, and I crew chief there for just a short while. But I was team manager. That was my last job in NASCAR.
Okay. Well, actually, just go through your career if you don't mind, and tell everybody, because kind of like. I'd say brag on yourself, but I mean, you do have an extensive career in NASCAR, but it started out with your shop in Salisbury.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, my automotive electrical shop.
Yeah. Well, you can talk about that if you'd like to.
Well, that's actually what propelled me into the sport was my abilities to work on electrical issues. And I had a friend who worked for Junior Johnson, Jeff Stutz, from here in Statesville. And they had an electrical problem with the car, and they couldn't get it straightened out. And he told Junior, he said, if you call my friend, he can fix this car. Mm-hmm. And I think they messed around for about a half a day with it. And Junior said, well, call him and see what he says. So Jeff called me. I told him, do A, B, C, D. Mm-hmm. So they did A, B, C, D, fixed the car. And Junior said, I want to see this guy.
Oh, yeah.
So I drove up to his shop, met with him, and he said, can you solve my problems? I said, yes, sir. And that's how it all began.
So were you actually excited whenever you heard that, whenever your junior wanted to see you?
Well, I was excited, but I don't get overly excited about too many things besides the birth of my daughters. That's the most exciting thing in my life, sure. But as far as the job goes, I was God gifted with a talent that I could use, and I think I was just provided a path to use it, and that being NASCAR.
Yeah, because I would think that if you, did you have a desire to get into NASCAR at that point?
Well, I had worked around on the short tracks, Concord, Metrolina, places like that, on other people's cars, and even at the Mooresville Drag Strip. Mm-hmm. I had worked on other people's cars, known as a fairly decent gearhead around town. And, racing, I always thought, how could I do this? How could I get into that? And, well, my last name's not Petty. My last name's not Childers. Yep. My last name's not Wood. How do you get into the sport? Right. And happenstance, I had a friend that worked in the sport.
Right. Same with me.
Yeah. So that's how you get there, or used to be how you got there.
I got to be good friends with the Wendells, who were 10 years ahead of me at Harding, but we just happened to work. I worked at a dealership with a guy that was a friend of Terry and Jerry Wendell. Mm-hmm. And so I got to know Terry really well, and he got me an interview with Jeff Hammond. Was my first interview, and then with Barry Dodson. Yeah. And then I ended up getting hired, so it's AVCO. Yeah. Back then. Cool. All right, so continue with your career.
So I worked at Juniors. That was my first job, and I left there and went to crew chief Michael Waltrip. I had worked with Darrell at Juniors and went to crew chief Michael Waltrip at Bahari. And from Bahari, helped Ricky Rudd start his team when he decided in '93 to go out on his own. And started his team up from scratch. That was a Tide car. Mm-hmm. Probably the most success I really ever had as far as me as the crew chief running a team, working with the driver. Ricky was probably the best driver I ever had in that respect. I wish we had gotten together when we were both much younger. I think we'd have been a good force, because the first 2 years we were together, and we finished in the top 6 2 years in a row. '94 won the Crew Chief of the Year award. Worked hard and with a whole lot less people and a whole lot less money than all other teams. But when we unloaded our car, they had the stopwatches on us, so that was a good feeling. Yeah. Yeah.
For sure, man, because y'all, things were completely different back then, of course, because you had a limited number of people. You pretty much had to be a jack of all trades. Yeah. Just because the guy that was building the rear end gears, he would also do maybe the electrical in the car. And
yeah, when I hired a guy, I didn't hire a guy who says, I'm a fabricator, or I'm a gear man, I'm just a gear man. Yeah. Now, normally, your gear man, he did your gears, your transmissions, and then put the whole rear end assembly together with the brakes and all that. He was more of a suspension man, gear man, transmission man. Mm-hmm. And if you needed him to go in the body shop, he would go in the body shop at the end of the day and help bondo the cars. That's the way we did it back then. Everybody helped one another. Right. I have a good friend of mine, Nick Beck, up in Dobson. He reminds me all the time. He come and interviewed with me once when I was at Rudd's, and he tells people the son of a gun wouldn't even hire me back then because I was a greenhorn. But, and he ended up getting into racing, and he's become a very successful man after the sport as well.
Yeah, he was telling me about him some of the adventures he's been on outside of racing. Sounds like he's having a pretty good time.
Yeah, he's got it together. Yeah. No doubt about it.
Very cool. So Tom Robinson in Indiana is asking. Actually, I'm gonna go back to Suzette right quick. She said we're having curfew here in L.A. County at 5 p.m. So there's another listener from elsewhere. But Tom's asking me. He said, "Who built the engines in the Tide Ride that would have Promoter.
It's Promoter George Gable and Peter. You don't remember Peter's like Peter Guild.
Okay.
Promoter, yeah. But George was our motor man. I guess he did the assembly, and he came to the track with us, tuned our motors. I had a lot of fun with him. He was a heck of a good engine guy.
He actually went to work over at Roush Yates Engines too.
Mm-hmm.
And then he ended up leaving. If I'm not mistaken, he lives out towards Salisbury, Mount Ola area.
He lives close to Mount Ola.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he seemed like a neat guy.
Oh, he was fun. He was a fun engine guy.
Mm-hmm. So, he was one of those with didn't he have the big mustache kind of too?
Smoked a big cigar.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Anybody else got any questions? And if you want to do a call in, if you don't have the number, I can text you the number or message you the number if you'd like to call and talk to Bill, ask him any questions. But I do have a few questions here that that's pretty much, okay. I remember seeing you driving around in Mooresville is that a Prowler?
Yeah, I had a Prowler at one time.
And
I've had many cars.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. Was that about the time you were with Bahari, I guess it was?
Probably, yeah.
So Scott Trevison says, hold on, I had a notification. Okay, tell us about a good story about John Bryan. Do you remember John Bryan?
Yeah, dude. He was good guy, from Charlotte, young boy.
That's right.
Greenhorn, but he worked with us there at Rudd's. Yes,
he was the Jack man, of course. And
mm-hmm.
He got the call. We were working at the dealership together on Independence Boulevard and Reed Oldsonville when John Bryan got the call from Ricky Rudd asking him to come and work in his parts department full time and be the Jack man.
Yeah.
So I believe that was probably around 94, 93, something like that.
Yeah, 93, 94, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess you were there then.
Yeah, I was there. I was a crew chief then. Prior to that, I had always been a Jack man, but I gave that part up to set up on top of the box.
There you go. That's quite a change there. And I chose to go the route of the engine building route versus.
That was truly probably the smartest move you could make.
I had the choice, but I was like, yeah, you know what? I think I'll go with the engines.
I really did. I always thought that I wanted to be an engine man. I mean, and I did because I love that part of it. Yeah. But, I just like getting out there and grinding on the cars and doing the chassis stuff. The geometry and stuff like that always appealed more to me. And that was what I liked about, even at Bahari, Rudd's, Haas, I always had the opportunity to put some of my own design into the chassis as well. I'm not an engineer by schooling, but I'm an engineer by reading books. Yeah. And I can remember back in the dirt days, a guy named Frank Smart from over in Concord. That man, we'd sit down on the floor with a piece of chalk on the concrete floor, and he would draw out our front suspension, and we would build it and put it together and go. Back then, when you want to race, they put a wind sticker on your car, on the roof of your car. Yeah. At the end of one year, we had wind stickers 3 rows deep on both sides of the top of our car.
Oh, nice.
So I learned a lot from that man.
That's a lot of fun to be able to design and do things like that.
Yeah.
I know I kind of went through that with some at Bill Davis when I was doing some of the, we got to engineer some different things and try different things to see what made more power and all that stuff. That was always a lot of fun being on that side. And back then you could do more of that kind of stuff, it seemed.
Yeah, you could.
You didn't have just one person specializing in this or that. It was kind of all over the place. With all your different talents you had to use. So Tom says, how was Ford Motor Company to work with?
Oh, as far as I'm concerned, Ford, they were great with us. I have to admit, I've always been a Chevy guy, General Motors guy, but whoever I'm working for, I'm gonna do the best job that I can. We didn't have any much help from Ford to start with, besides sheet metal parts and things like that. And when we showed them at the end of the first year in 1994, full season, I think we finished 6th in points, and they came to us and said, "What can we do?" So they started a small engineering program there at Rudd's, and so we had some of their assistants.
Very nice.
So they stood behind him pretty good, I'll say.
Yeah, I went and interviewed down at Rudd's, but it was whenever Jim Long was there at the time, and it was down in it was Robert Yates owned building across the street from Roush Yates.
Yeah.
But I can't remember how that deal came about because that whole Tide car thing transitioned from it was, Cal Wills at one time, which would have been the last of the Tide car, I believe, after Ricky sold it or got out.
No, I believe he was. Yeah, you're right. Right.
And it was the 32 car.
32 car.
With Ricky Craven and them guys. And then before that, it was Ricky Rudd, his shop, the 10.
Yeah, the 10, but Todd was with Hendrick Motorsports when Ricky drove the 5-car.
Okay.
And they brought Todd came with Ricky to start his own team.
All right. That's it. That's where it was then. Okay.
Yeah. And then Jim Long came in after me, and then I went back again after Jim Long.
Okay. And Jim must have come in probably around 97, maybe 90. Hold on, 98. Would have been 97, 98, somewhere around.
Yeah, probably 96, 97.
96. It could have been 96 because I remember we had a big meeting at Savco, and there was several. It was kind of a shakeup going on. It was Mike Ford, who was the jack man at the time. That's whenever I saw an opportunity for me to jump in there because I traveled at 95, but I was training to be a jack man that whole year, kind of. And then in 96, when Kyle Petty was there. Barry Dodson was on. He was leaving, and as he was walking out the door, pushing his toolbox out, we had this meeting upstairs. There's like 15 of us, and Felix Sabatas was pointing people out. Are you leaving? If you're leaving, then go ahead. Yes. And he was talking to Mike Ford. He said, "I heard you're going to go to Robert Yates Racing. If you're leaving, if that's true, then go ahead."
Yeah.
And then Jim Long. So are you leaving? And I believe he was going to go to Reds at the time. So, what were you up to in those days?
I was probably at Stavola Brothers then because I worked with a couple different. I went to in '96. I was at Bechtel Motorsports.
Bechtel, yes.
Yeah, I went there.
96.
I believe it was '96
because we moved out next door.
Yeah.
From Bechtel, and then we moved to Mooresville, and y'all.
Yeah, we were on Orr Road in Charlotte. Yep.
Yep, I remember that. It's Bay Hackle Communications or something like that, down in Charlotte.
Yeah.
TV, whatever.
All right.
And we've also got Dawn Clark in here, who was a NASCAR scorer. And if she's got anything she wants to chime in with and make comments or talk about Bill, you are welcome to join us and talk about that. But we got some more questions and such. Come on over. Scott Trevison says, tell us a story about Dave Charpentier and Savco. Okay, I could do that.
Yeah, you would know it better than me. All I know is the lawsuit.
Yes. Oh, the lawsuit. Yes. Yeah, because Dave Charpentier, he was a big time engineer. He was always kind of a little bit different, but so he was working at Savco and with us in '96, I guess it was, and he ended up leaving. He went up to the 75 car right up the street at I guess Morgan Shepherd was going to be the driver. It was Butch Mock.
Butch Mock, okay.
Right? And it was a 75 up there, and I know he ended up calling me one day and said, "Hey." And this whole lawsuit thing. Well, and that's where the lawsuit. That was Rudd. He left there maybe to go to Rudd.
He left.
75.
He left Rudd and went to Sabatas, and that was the lawsuit.
Oh, that was the lawsuit. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I'm thinking even further along.
Yeah.
When you start getting older, you start. Things all kind of run together.
Well, wait till you get old.
But
You're not old yet.
But yeah, Charpentier called me up one day and said, "Hey, we need a machinist and we need a jackman for this car. Do you want to come up here?" But I ended up not taking it. I ended up staying there and then hanging out with Sterling for a couple years, a few years, whatever. Yeah, so we have Dawn Clark in here with us. Hey, Dawn, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
And we can't see you over here, though.
That's all right.
Hold on. Let me get you turned on.
Please don't turn the camera.
There you go.
I'm wearing my David Hamm shirt.
I like that. It says, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Because that's
It's
from
a Tom Dooley quote.
Yes, from the Tom Dooley play. I pull my hat off and say, maybe not. See, I'm not.
So we all got T-shirts made.
Yes.
From one line.
Yeah, from one line. That's right. So I like to see if the crowd would go, ooh.
Crowd didn't go.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about Butch Mock and Sapco and all that, and I may have said that the last time I was here.
Yeah.
So when I came back to Statesville in the early 90s, Lakeside Park, there was nothing out there except that ham and egg place, on the corner.
The Winter Circle Deli, or no, or is it across?
No, I
got you.
It was.
No, she's talking before the park was even built.
Oh,
the park
okay.
was built.
I was going to say Scott Trevison, who's tuning in, his parent, they own the Winter Circle Deli down there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that.
I remember, yeah.
That.
Is Diane related to them?
Yes.
Yes.
Right, Scott, Diane.
Yep. I was their banker for a while, actually.
Oh, were you really?
But yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I came back to Statesville as a banker, and Bob Ebert had paid $2,500 an acre for that, and nothing was built there from the time that I moved away from Statesville and came back, and then all of a sudden the whole thing exploded. And so when I hear you guys talk about Butch Mock and Sapco and all these other places out there.
Yeah. Yeah, that was in the early
it was
days.
a big deal.
Because in '96, Sabco was like the Taj Mahal of the Mooresville race shops, and
Yeah.
then they built juniors, of course.
Yeah, but Chuck Ryder built that place where Bahari was in
Yes.
about '89.
Yes.
And that was the Garage Mahal at
Right.
the time.
Right.
It was
They
the
were-
first two-story race shop ever been built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never been in there, but if I did, I saw the bottom level. But
Yeah.
I remember that shop when we moved out there, and that being really nice, big white building with a lot of glass in the front and two
Right.
stories. But then Felix, of course, he has to kind of do it up,
Where him and Chuck were always comparing each other. They
Yes.
they had that business thing going on.
What was Chuck Ryder's business? I can't remember.
He had a place in Charlotte called Automotive Electric Parts, Auto Parts. He had an auto parts store, and he was the main distributor for Briggs & Stratton engines and parts
Oh, okay.
in North Carolina.
Nice.
Yeah.
Which they were big into the WKA and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The World Karting Association.
Yeah, because our little bank was right there on the corner, like where the Chick-fil-A is now.
Yes.
That was our bank.
Oh, okay.
So
there was a bank there before.
it was the Bank of Iredale.
The Bank of Iredale, okay.
Yeah.
Before
back
the
in day.
Chick-fil-A. So you remember what it was like before they built the Lowe's? I mean, as far as that,
Oh,
that
there
was
was
a
nothing out
that was
there.
a big hole, and it was just woods and a big hole. So they just packed it and packed it and packed it.
Yeah. I think B.V. Belk was the guy who actually, well, he's a builder. It's been around Mooresville a long time. He was the one that developed all that.
Okay. Packed it and packed it. All right, so see
Yeah.
if we get any more questions here. Y'all get any more questions? If anybody wants to do a call in, you are welcome to it. But we were going to talk about the race a little bit. But I mean, I'm not going to get too much into it, having Bill here with us today. But if you watch the Charlotte Motor Speedway race, which was last Wednesday, and then last Monday we went over the race from the Wednesday before and the Sunday. But we had the finishing order, of course, was the 4 Fords, 4 Chevys, 2 Toyotas. Chase Elliott, why does it say Chase Elliott?
He won the 312 on Thursday night.
Yeah.
But the Sunday night race was won by Brad Keselowski because of Chase's issue there at the end.
I'm looking at
Yeah.
my rundown. It says Chase Elliott. I'm like, that's not right.
Yeah, he won the Thursday night race.
Yes.
The 321, 312 mile race.
And you know what I liked about that? When seeing his win, when he got out of the truck, he didn't have a mask on. But I can't remember the guy interviewing him. But I took a screenshot of it off of YouTube, and he sticks this pole into his face, and that guy's got a mask on. And I'm like, you're out in the middle of a racetrack, and you're having to social distance yourself. Yeah, but that's how that goes. It got quiet all of a sudden.
Yeah, it did.
Okay, must have been the air cutting off. I was
Yeah.
like, what is that noise? It sounds like a train coming through.
I know this is so much louder than the last time I was here. It's
Yeah.
like-
Yeah, and that's why I have this mic on, that mic on, and then that one's turned off because it'll echo. So, so anyway, we'll just forget the rundown in order. But y'all know how the race ended there at Charlotte.
Yeah. Well, the race yesterday was great, in my opinion. It had a finish like the old school races were. Chase and Joey got into it there at the end, and they were just racing for the same position. And nothing wrong with in my eyes, nothing wrong with what he did, because he didn't put a bumper to Joey and Terry's race car and put him in the wall.
Right.
He used Joey's 4 tires, hoping that 8 tires would hold better than 4, and it didn't work out for either one of them. So, it cost them both.
Right.
But
It was that like 2 weeks in a row something happened with Chase on.
Yeah, Brad Keselowski, he needs to send Chase a very, very nice Christmas present this year because he's given him 2 races.
2 races. That's right. He won the past 2 races there, or one at Charlotte, one at Bristol.
Yeah.
So, David, how do people
Yeah.
call in if people
Oh.
want to call into the show?
I'd have to give them the phone number, which I'm not going to do on YouTube, but all they got to do is call in this. And I've had Tom Robinson call in. I've had Rachel call in. I've had Scott call in. So if any one of y'all wants to call in, I got a couple of texts. Oh, yeah. So if anybody wants to call in, you just send me a text and we will make that happen. I'll make sure you have the phone number. I would give it out on YouTube, but I might have whoever, no telling how many calls I'd be having at one time coming in is what I'm getting at. So I did have a question here. Brian Spencer says, what is Bill's opinion of the direction of the sport? We've talked about this several times.
That's rough. It is. That's a tough one. I
Yes.
Personally, I don't really care for it. I don't care for the way things are going, and that new car that was supposed to debut for 2021 now been delayed to 2022. It's going to put a lot of people out of work in the sport, from what I understand. And, all the parts and pieces are NASCAR dispersed or going to be distributed to all the teams through NASCAR. I don't know. It just takes away the roots of the sport. And I understand things have to change, you know, life changes. But it's just, to me, it's just taken so much out of the sport.
Yeah, that's for sure. And we had another question. What is the Tom's asking, Tom Robinson up in Indiana, what's the biggest race that you all won that meant the most to you?
Well, to me, I guess probably the biggest race, and it was a small race. That was the race at Loudon with Ricky Rudd when we won our first race. He had always won a race every year in a row. So the pressure was on me, new team, new crew, the whole 9 yards, to win him a race that year, and we won at Loudon.
And what year was that?
That was 94.
Okay.
Because I started with him in 93, but actually we didn't race in 93, raced 94. Was our first full season of racing. And I made a pit call there at the end of the race to just put on 2 tires. And most everyone else put on 4. We came out 5th with, I don't know, just a few laps to go, 10 laps to go or whatever. And we immediately moved right up to 2nd. And I just kept talking to Ricky on the radio and just convincing him that we were going to go, it was going to be good. And Dale Earnhardt was leading, and he passed Dale in between 1 and 2, and we won the race. That was, you know, to beat Dale Earnhardt at anything
for sure.
was an accomplishment.
Yes.
But to do it with a new team and all that, it was very rewarding. But I have a lot of races, though, that winning with Junior Johnson, the Lord, look at the races. The man won over 21 races at Bristol, and I was there for a lot of those.
Yeah.
So that, you know, Nashville Speedway, those places like that, that's just, you know, you don't forget those times.
Right. Yes. I remember. Well, I was going to say if you said 98 Martinsville, which I don't know that you were Ricky then, but I was.
Hey, I was Ricky when we burned him up in the car.
Yes.
Yeah, but
and he
we
won the race. Okay.
Let me tell you something.
Man.
I talked to that guy every lap of the race to keep him focused. Sterling.
Yes.
Sterling, we followed Sterling. Well, we let Sterling go. So just so you know, your car wasn't as good as you thought it was.
Okay.
I said, let Sterling around you and just follow him.
Okay.
And we'll pass him at the end. And that's what happened.
Maybe I don't feel as bad now.
I hate to burst your bubble.
No,
But
that's comforting actually, because I was working with another guy. So I went from moving from Nemechek, building qualifying engines, and I was working with a guy. We built this engine for Sterling. There was a lot of different shakeups going on at the end of that year. And I remember asking him, I said, should I replace this alternator? It's already had 1 run on it. He's like, no, it'll be all right. So I put the alternator on. Well, I get there and I'm jacking for Sterling that day. And we were leading the race, like most all of the race. And then he starts saying my voltage is going down. He said, I think my alternator's not charging. My battery's going dead, you know, and all this stuff. So we're like, okay, well, we're going to have to, we're leading the race, but we're just going to have to change the battery. And so, I mean, we ended up losing the race because of that alternator, but maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
I can assure you not. Our car was that good. Because Ricky was burning up in that car, and I had to talk to him every lap. And I said, let Sterling go around and just follow him. Just stay right there with him, and at the end, take it back.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, I hate to do that to you, David, but it's the truth.
Well, that's fine. I mean,
Now we know.
And I would rather.
All these years, I wondered.
Yeah, and I'd rather it be Ricky that won versus Rusty or something.
I got you.
Because I remember being with 97. I was actually jacking for Nemechek because we started out with Robbie Gore and we ended up switching him to the B team, whatever. But we're racing at Watkins Glen, and so we beat Rusty out of the pits. You know, that was one of the cool things. So, because I wasn't a big Rusty fan, we were talking about early a little bit. All right, so some more questions here. Suzette's talking about she's getting her groceries home and stuff. So
Sometimes we get weather. People tell us like what it's doing in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma.
That's right.
Hey, Terry.
But Suzette made it. Yes.
Thank goodness.
Terry Quinn's on here. Yeah, Broken Arrow, Oklahoma for sure. Scrolling down. Oh, and Cheryl Blevins, she's out in Idaho. Yes. So what's up, Cheryl?
Hamm has a wide following.
And Rachel Rodman says the Briggs and Stratton now are doing great in building mini outlaw engines. So she's got a friend that runs those mini outlaws, and she talked to me before about doing some engines. I just haven't gotten into that yet. I used to build my own Briggs and Stratton engines, so when I was racing, that's another story. So, this is the same question we already asked. What is Bill's opinion? Okay. Brian also asked, Bill doing anything within the sport now that he is retired?
Not a thing. When I retired, I retired. The best way to say it is I'm a participator, not a spectator. If I go to a fight, I want to fight. If I go to a baseball match, I want to play baseball. If I go to a racetrack, I want to work on race cars.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just, that's always been my thing. I'm a participator, not a spectator.
Well, you also dabbled in TV for a little bit.
Yeah, I did the Fox Sports thing for 3 years. morning show, night show, NASCAR Victory Lane, NASCAR This Morning. Did those shows for 3 years.
And you were telling me how long it would take y'all in a studio.
Yeah, it was a 5:30 arrival time, and we usually got out of there between 10 and 11 o'clock at night. So very long days.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, the guys in racing think they had long days. Of course, I was there at one time too.
Yeah.
But the television guys, they put in long days as well.
Well, then you could just take the rest of the week off after that. So pretty much.
You had time to sleep.
Yes. So Rachel says, I agree with what Bill says about losing the roots of the sport. And she also says, Bill, how do you think you would feel about a crew chief now being a crew chief now with the coronavirus? What do you think it would be the biggest challenges of it?
Wow, the biggest challenge would be trying to stay 6 feet away from those guys, because you know, it's hard to hear sometimes up there when you're on that box and the guys are down there and you want to make a change on tire pressure or something. You used to have to grab the guys and bring them over and holler in their ear. So you'd have to get within a foot of them for them to hear you.
Yeah,
so that would be it'd be tough to manage that in the pits with the coronavirus rules right now, and you don't want to announce it on the radio because other teams are hearing you.
Right. And,
You know?
and a lot of times you rely on reading lips.
Yeah.
So you're like, you know, if I'm like this talking to Dawn right here, and you don't know well, you know what I'm saying. That's crazy.
No, I do know what you're saying.
Yes. So Scott Trevison says, what's Bill's favorite racetrack?
Honestly, Darlington. I'm glad you asked that, because I have actually driven the car at Darlington. That is the most challenging racetrack for a race car, for a driver. That's why so many drivers love it.
Yeah.
It drives like no other track. There's nothing else on the circuit that even compares. All these cookie cutter racetracks they have, the mile and a halves. Well, Darlington stands at 1.366 on its own. It is its own racetrack, and it is a ball to drive. You could go down there. I could go down there every day and drive a car 100 laps and just be a happy man. Yeah,
there you go. Now, do you think it has anything to do with the surface and what they've got, you know, the shell and stuff?
Oh, it's definitely the surface, but I guess it is turns 1 and 2 now, as it was 3 and 4 back in the day. It's so much narrower than the actual 3 and 4 now, which is a wide sweeping corner, and you just get it and drive your low lane or the high line now. But when you go down into what is turn 1 now, you drive all the way to the bottom, and you let the car take a set, and then you just stomp the gas, and it drives itself to the wall. If you try to hold it off the wall, you're going to be in the wall. So you just let it drift up there to the wall, hammer it coming off of the turn, and down the backstretch.
So I remember you drove, but what was the end of your career driving?
Money.
Okay. Well, doesn't that just beat all? So, I'm going to get you a sponsor, Bill.
Please do.
Yeah. Bill's talking about burning. This is from Terry Quinn out in Oklahoma. Says, Bill talking about Ricky burning up. Is he talking about when it was so hot Ricky had to have oxygen and sit on the ground against the car at the end of the race?
That was the race.
Yes, I remember that very well.
He was like a wet dish rag when pulled him out of that car.
Sure.
But he won the race, man, and that showed me a lot about the little guy.
Yes.
He was a tough competitor. That's why I said 100 times I've said it. Man, if me and him could have been together when he was a younger man, I think we'd have made a big difference in the sport, and especially in his win and loss column.
Oh, yeah, I guarantee you. So Chad Hatter in Ohio says, what got you in a car at Darlington?
I had a Busch car. Matter of fact, a guy named Steve Graham had a Busch car at that time, and that was the car that I drove at Darlington. And he asked me if I wanted to drive, and I said, sure. So at that time, I was working with Junior Johnson, and Junior said, you know, if you want to run on Saturday, go ahead. It's okay, no big deal.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's what I loved about Junior Johnson.
Who wants to drive this week?
Yeah, I mean, Junior was an awesome owner, the best owner I ever worked with. And so he allowed me to get in a car.
Very cool. Tracy says she's just tuning in. She was on the phone with Jana down in Daytona. So she says, I've read the comments myself today. Usually Tracy will be here and reading the comments.
Yeah.
Dawn, you got your phone with you?
I do.
Okay. We should be tuning in.
I've been reading. I made a comment.
Oh, did you?
Before
Okay.
you
Well, thank. Oh,
brought
I
me
did
up
see your
here.
comment. Yes, thank you.
I said David
And-
should have a party to invite all these people that listen in to.
Absolutely.
Oh, did you say that out loud?
No, I didn't. We did. I had a party last June, sometime in the middle of June, and I had some of my friends. Chad Hatter come down from Ohio, and Hutch Strickland came to my shop to Hamscapes, and then Tom Robinson from Indiana, He came down. Rachel Rodman come up from Charlotte.
Maybe for your birthday, we could have like a big
Oh, that's a great idea.
Party.
For my birthday month, we'll just have a
We'll tell Kathy
month-long
Cash.
party. Yes.
I actually crew chiefed Hut a few races too.
Oh, okay.
I did.
Yeah, I should tell Hut to call in. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll send him a text and ask him if he's got
Yeah.
time.
You can tell Bill's been on TV because you're the first person that I've ever heard, like, all NASCAR guys, like, talk with their hands. Like, when you were saying that about, you come down and the car sets and then you stomp on it and take off, and you didn't use your hands for any of that. And I'm like, I don't know a single man that I ever knew in
Well,
all
now
my
you
years
do.
of racing that
Now you do.
couldn't, like, not talk about it with their hands.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Yes.
Think about it.
Well,
that's
in our
true.
defense, most women, if you tied their hands behind their back, they couldn't say a word.
Oh, yes. That's a great point there. No, I'm kidding. I shouldn't say that. I
No,
shouldn't
but
agree with that.
You kind of learn the lingo with your hands, even as a girl in the pits.
Yes. Rachel says, what would you say are the fundamental personality traits of a successful crew chief? It's a good
That's a
question.
good question.
I'm going to say the first part of that is organization. There's a lot of crew chiefs, especially back in the day, that weren't organized.
Yeah.
And that was the downfall of their success or non-success. Yeah, the first thing is you got to be organized, and especially back when I did it, we did so many different things. I was a crew chief, but I also built all the shock absorbers. So I would get in the shop 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning and build shocks until 7 when the other guys came into work.
Wow.
So you got to be able to do a lot of different things to be a crew chief back in that day. Nowadays, man, they got car chiefs and engineers and all. So the crew chiefs that don't even, to my knowledge, I can only speak to what I know and been told by other people. They don't even touch the cars anymore. And I see, to me, that's not what I want to be.
They're just more in organizing and managing, and that's about it. It's more of a team manager kind of.
It is, more or less.
Yeah.
And when I was at Haas, the last job I had, when they asked me to crew chief the car, when the crew chief they had left, so I said, okay, I'll do it a few races. And then they tell me I need a car chief.
Yeah.
And why I need a car chief? I know how to do things.
Right.
I don't need a car chief.
Is
So
that like your
that was
assistant?
tough for me to do.
Yeah. A car chief would be like a crew chief's assistant, I guess. Right?
There you go.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And Dawn, do you want to be seen? I mean, you're off camera here. All you got to do is move to the middle. If
There's
you don't,
only like 15 minutes left.
but you don't have. It's okay. If you don't have to, I mean, I'm just saying, it's all good.
Oh, there's the camera. I'll
Yeah,
move
there's the
over
camera.
by Bill. He's like one of my idols from the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here, I'll put it up here.
I saw him on TV.
There you go. Now you can see. Now you can see Dawn. There she is. Now you're gonna have to stand up and model your shirt too, by the way, if you don't mind.
Oh, that's why
Yes.
he wanted you over there.
Lord,
So
it's
have
not.
mercy.
It's not.
Seriously?
Yeah, but you have to move that chair
he
and
wanted
stand
to
in
show
front of
off
Bill.
his shirt. Yeah.
Glad I wore a bra.
Whoa, TMI.
Back up
Wait,
towards
which
Bill.
one? The microphone is cutting my shirt off.
Is it? Okay. You can see it there. Yeah, there you go. It says maybe not. That's from the Tom Dooley Project play. And if you'd like to buy that shirt, you can reach right up, or it's right up here. I'm just kidding. I think I owe you another one, don't I? Or
I need another one because
yeah,
Hamm is faded.
Yeah.
And I've only watched him several times.
yeah. Okay, I'll work on that. I know I said that before, but I just forgot what size you needed and all that kind of. You don't have to
That's
say
all right.
that on
We don't
air.
have to talk about that right now.
Oh, yes. So what's up, Jana from Daytona? She is tuned in. She is Jana is the wife of the beer man, Scott Trevison, who was the beer man for Coors Light for a long time. Yes. And so I haven't heard back from Hut yet. I was going to see if he wanted to do a call in. So if anybody wants to call in and ask a question, you're welcome to do it. You just got to text me and I'll send you the number. But otherwise, I got some questions here. So racing, you know what? Some people have already asked these questions pretty much. Bristol races, old and new, and yesterday's race.
Well, the Bristol races compared to old to new was back in the day when it was asphalt and we had bi-supply tires. That's when racing at Bristol was awesome.
Okay.
ago
When that track, well, that was it was in the early '80s. I think 1992 is when they came out with the radial tire. So it was after that they concreted it because the radials pulled the asphalt up. It just ripped the stuff up out of the corners. Yeah, it was a mess. But before that, we had the bi-supply tires. Harry Gant, Dale Earnhardt, those guys put on and Bobby Allison. Those are the guys. They put on a heck of a show at Bristol. It was fun to watch.
Sure.
They talk about running high and wide and all that now. Boy, back in the day, you'd see a streamer coming off of Dale Earnhardt, Harry Gant's cars off the right rear tire. There'd just be a stream of smoke coming off of them. Guys were hauling butt around there.
Why do you think Darrell won so much there?
Darrell was a good short track driver. You know, he came from Nashville, which he won a lot of races at Nashville.
Sure.
Short and road courses. Darrell was real good on those. He was just, you know, he grew up as a short track driver, and he was good at it. He knew what he needed to feel in a race car, and I think that's what made him that good. You know, because he just had a knack for those short tracks.
Literally drove by the seat of his pants.
Yes.
That's right.
The first time I ever went to Bristol, it was, I think, 96. And it was before the track went all the way, I mean, the stands went all the way around. And I remember walking, there wasn't a tunnel then either. You had to like walk down the banking. And I remember looking up and there were like these 5 or 6 like little lawn chair things that were like sitting back up in the hill. And I'm like, what is happening with that? And literally like 2 years later, the whole thing was,
Yeah.
and the scorer's booth was like up in the, you know, where the suites were.
Yeah, and back then too, you couldn't get a ticket. Like you had to be on a year waiting list to get a ticket.
Yeah, 2 or 3 years there at one time.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, gosh, there's more. I would walk in there and I'd see, oh, there's a place they could put stands up in there.
Yeah.
And then eventually they did, and I think they may have taken some back out now, and I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But that was the place to go.
Yeah, that was after Bruton bought it. And after Bruton bought it, that place completely changed.
Yeah.
So we had a question, Bill. How do you deal with the different personalities with drivers, and which current Cup driver would you like to work with if you could? That's from Rachel.
How do you deal with them? Well, you have to be a psychiatrist. You have to be a psychiatrist. You need to be a little bit of a preschool type of teacher to work with them, because drivers are very finicky, and you just got to know how to work with their mind. You know, you got to cheat their minds all the time, because if they think it's going to happen, it might. So. Kind of a tough thing there, but drivers are very different. That's why you see the successful drivers get matched up with the crew chief. They got a crew chief that speaks their language. I think that's what makes it successful there, because you know, you can tell a driver, you put on 2 tires and say it's going to stick. If you can convince him it's going to stick before the green flag starts, he'll stick it. Yeah. He'll drive it in there. But if you can't get him convinced, he's not going to do it, and you have to settle for what you get.
Yeah.
As far as the drivers nowadays, man, you know what? I like Clint Boyer. I really do.
Yeah.
I think he's awesome.
Yeah.
But I like the Bush boys. I do. I know a lot of people talk about them, but they're drivers, man.
They're drivers.
Kurt, I would choose Kurt over Kyle. I really would. Kurt is he's a smart man when it comes to the chassis and stuff, and I don't mind someone showing passion. You know, if I could have chose a driver a few years ago, it'd been Tony Stewart. Because good God, I love Tony Stewart. That man,
got a lot of
you know,
passion.
and to go further back than that would have been Tim Richmond.
Oh yeah,
because there was nothing better than standing on pit road, racing against him,
right,
and watching him burn that right rear tire off, especially Darlington. Sure. He'd come off that corner, off the 4th turn at Darlington in the right rear. You could see the right side of the car. Him would come off the corner. I can remember just a little short story there.
Yeah.
When I was working with Neil, we were running about 5th. Richmond's running 2nd. Caution comes out, and crew chief asked Neil. He said, "Neil, is there anything you need?" He said, "Well, I was going to tell you I was loose." He said, "But after sitting here behind Richmond watching him, if he's not complaining about loose, I'm good."
That's cool.
Yeah, he'd have been a good one to work with.
Yeah, I'd like to have been around back in those days with Tim Richmond.
Oh, he put on a show, man.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
That was the 27, the old Milwaukee car. It was my sister's favorite driver.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I always liked him. He was a showman too. I mean,
no doubt. Yeah.
He was one of the interesting characters that we kind of lack nowadays. But, you know, we do have the Bush brothers who have character, at least Kyle. And people tend to not like them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like doing the whole bowing and things.
Yeah.
I liked how Chase Elliott, when he won the race, he bowed.
Oh, yeah, he bowed. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. So, yes, Jana says, "Oh, I love Bristol. Plus, that's where Scott and I met."
No?
Okay. You might know Jana. I mean, she used to actually, Scott's wife, but she was in the racing at some point. Maybe with, I can't remember who it was now. I actually worked with the guys. Scott, what's his name, Jenna? Tell me where you worked. So
I'm reading my comments, but I don't
Chad
see
said, Chad says, "I bought tickets in '97 for a race in '99 at Bristol." And
oh, yeah.
assuming,
Yeah, that was back in the good old days.
Yeah. So Rachel says, "Wow, I wish NASCAR was this popular today. We need to get our sport back." Yeah, it was.
I don't see it heading that direction.
Me either.
No, I don't either. Rachel says, "I like Clint Boyer, but what about Brad and the flag? You just gotta love that patriotism."
I love the patriotism, but I'm not a big fan of Brad. I'm just really not. You know, I don't know. He just doesn't have the charisma that I care for in a race car driver.
Right. All right. So next question. Bristol was my first, or actually Terry says it. Bristol was my first race. Dale's famous line, "I was just trying to rattle his cage. Terry Labonte won."
Mm-hmm. I remember that. I was there for that race. Yeah.
So yeah, Bristol. That place. Did you? Sorry. Have you ever sat in the stands at Bristol?
I have.
Okay.
I spotted one time for one of our drivers.
Okay.
You know, I was crew chief and decided to go up. And I think Gary Nelson, I won't take credit for it. Gary Nelson was the first one to ever do that. He went up in the stands or in the spotter stand and watched his driver and called the race from up there.
Oh, okay.
And so I did that as well. And you can see, but being away from your crew down in the pit, that's hard. I only did it the one time.
Okay.
You know, it's good watching the cars and you can see more of what's going on, but you have a better feel for it if you're on top of that pit box.
It's what I said last time
Yes.
about sitting in the suites was horrible for me. I
Oh,
just
yeah.
wanted to I don't want to sit in a suite. I want to sit in the stands so I can smell everything.
Yeah. It's
And
definitely
hear everything.
different.
It's really different.
When you're air conditioned, you can't hardly. It just sounds like you're in a echo chamber and you're like getting sleepy.
The first time I went to Bristol, I put my headset on in the infield and I had on earrings, and it was so loud during practice that it was just like making my earrings rattle. I feel like the color commentator right now, Dave.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're using your hands.
Here's what I wore to the Darlington
Well, you're
race
saying-
in 1998.
Yeah, see, if you tied her hands, you can say a word.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Oh my gosh. So Hut texted me back. He said he said, "Sorry, man, I'm still at work." I'll tell you what, that's a hard working man.
Yeah.
He's been real busy. Stock car still
Oh,
working.
my friend Kenny West used to work there.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Kenny.
Hey, Kenny West. So Chad Hutter says, "Real Men Work in the Pits" with Jeff Hammond. That's a book, right? That I believe he wrote. I think that's a book
Really?
he wrote.
He worked. The title of the book is "Real Men Work in the Pits."
Yeah, I believe that's it. Yes. Yep.
He needs a new marketer.
I need a. You know what? It's funny though. It's not really funny. I was riding around mowing today, and I was thinking, you know what? I was listening to an audio book, and I was like, I need to just go ahead and write a book. Like,
What would the
get it
title of
out
your
there.
book be, Dave?
That's a good question. I could relate it to like
Good Day
Dr.
Mates,
Seuss.
maybe not?
Well, I mean ham, like ham I am. You know, like Dr. Seuss, I do not eat green eggs and ham. So I could come up with I could be like a children's book. Who knows? Maybe you could help me with that. You said you're good at marketing.
Liz is the marketer.
Oh, okay, Liz. You're my new.
Life with Caroline Barnes.
Oh, there you go. I like that. So Caroline Barnes was the other character. I was Captain Jack. Arr.
Nobody.
She don't like when I say that. I tried to claim I was a pirate in the play, in the Tom Dooley Project. So I'd say I was Captain Jack. But I was Jack Atkins.
There weren't a lot of pirates in Ferguson, North Carolina, or Elk Valley, and
Yeah, they weren't
18.
around.
Valley.
Well,
or Happy Valley.
I'll tell you a quick story, and this is not related to NASCAR, but there's 3 pirates buried at Thyatira Church down here in Salisbury because they fled the whole pirate scene after things went down when they went down bad after all that, and they moved to Rowan County. Well, some people found out about them, and they ended up hanging them and burying them in Thyatira. And the judge said that they can be buried there, or the pastor or somebody, but all you can put on the tombstone is the skull and crossbones. They can't have their name or anything.
So you can go down there and see those?
Yes, you can. I took pictures of it before it ended up disappearing for whatever reason, and it's been there since way, way back, over 150 years ago, something like that. A long time.
Yeah.
And it's the skull and crossbones on there, and it's starting to fade away with the weather and stuff.
Well, you can take Giggles with you and go visit the pirates.
So, I mean, that's one of my things. I like graveyards. I like cemeteries. Cemeteries technically when it's beside a church.
Are you serious?
So there's a lot of graveyards. Well, I'm saying
found out a lot
there's a
of
difference in a graveyard and a cemetery. A graveyard's out by itself.
Oh.
But back in the 1800s, there may have been a church there. So is it technically a graveyard or cemetery? I don't know. I think too much. So anyway, there you go. Cheryl in Idaho says, I am good here in Idaho, headed to my shop. Well, good. Glad you got to join us, Cheryl. And Scott says, tell Bill we got the Richmond Fence Climber online. That's right, we do. We got Dickie Dennis.
I saw Dickie earlier.
Yeah, last
Sorry,
time.
I didn't mention that.
Yeah, Dickie Dennis.
That's funny.
Yeah. What's up, Dickie? He's up in, I did actually, I also have to send you a link to my video. I interviewed Dickie over the phone. And actually, we got to have Dickie call in if he wants to. But Bristol's catch fence is chicken wire. True story, he says.
Yeah.
That was in 2014 at Richmond. And you wasn't going to the track then still.
No.
Yeah, you might have seen it on TV, though. That's kind of a popular
Yeah.
subject, the old fence climber there. Yes, so Scott says, tell Bill we got the Richmond Fence Climber online. And Jana says, you would have to be careful on the stories that you tell.
I definitely would.
Yes, I'm sure. Rachel says, hey, my first engine book for kids, inspire them to create engines of the future.
There you go.
There you go, Dad.
That's it. There's my idea.
That's
Rachel.
your new thing.
Yes. Text me that tomorrow morning. Rachel, remind me, please. That would be awesome. Maybe you can help me with that. She writes for an attorney. I think she does like paralegal stuff or whatever. Or maybe so she writes. She likes to write, or
And
she
you
writes
might
a
need
lot.
an attorney at some point, too.
That is true. Yes. So there are actually a lot of mechanical books for kids. She said not a lot of mechanical books for kids. So, well, okay, and I'll tell you that's what my my YouTube channel is about now. I decided to niche down instead of all the different things that I've been doing and stick with my automotive stuff. Like I'll show a video of how to replace this engine mount or how to adjust a torque wrench or some of these technical things that people are like seem to be interested in when I show them on my NASCAR chats. I'm just going to do videos about it and start posting them. And I've got some that have done really well, like how to fix different trouble codes on cars, P1, 3, 4, 5 code. And it's got close to 10,000 views on it over the past 5 months or so. And I was like, okay, all right, well, people are interested in that stuff. All right, so Dickie Dennis says, is it Bristol's catch fences is real chicken wire? Oh, it is Bristol's catch fences. Yes. And Tracy says, yes, Bill, he is crazy. Good idea, Rachel. She's talking about me. So anyway, I don't guess we're going to have any callers tonight, unless somebody wants to. So, yeah, so I don't have any more text messages from that. So Magnaflux. Oh, yeah, Chad Hutter says Magnaflux because I explained the whole Magnaflux process. Yes. Yeah. And then you got, you can Zyglo a piston to check an aluminum part for cracks, And I told him how we used to have to take the cars apart and then, sandblast or clean the paint off, whatever, aircraft stripper, whatever we used. It just depended on what part it was. And then you would Magnaflux them to check the
spindles
cracks.
and the axles and
that's right.
Hubs, all that stuff. Yeah, we Magnafluxed it all.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yes. So
that's just a word I don't hear in my everyday life anymore like I used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I could do video or just talk about balancing crankshafts. I actually got my own crank balancer in my shop now. So, heck yeah.
Even before Magnaflux, we used to use baby powder.
Oh, really?
On the dirt cars, yeah. We would clean it. Yeah, we'd pull all the spindles apart and clean them up real good and just sprinkle baby powder on it and hit it with a plastic mallet. And if there was a crack, it would stick in, the baby powder would stick in the crack and you could see it.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, that makes sense.
Pretty simple.
It's
it's simple stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know how many years it's been since I heard the word surface plate.
Yeah.
Yeah, because baby powder is really fine.
Surface plates.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, surface plates, and I always wonder why in NASCAR shops they don't use car lifts. Like we only use the car lift to wash
to clean,
the cars.
Yeah, in the wash bay.
And that was it. But why not? When putting
Is
an
it
engine
because
in?
everything had to be like level on the ground?
Well, it was on jack stands. You put an engine in with jack stands, and it'd been a whole lot simpler with a lift.
Yeah. So I still don't understand that, but I guess maybe I don't know. I would say they're too expensive, but I mean, come on.
Oh no,
come on,
$2,500.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what I paid for mine.
Yeah,
so.
you got a $25 million sponsor and $2,500.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So Jana actually come back. She said, "You missed my earlier message. I started with Bill Davis Racing. That's who it was.
Yeah.
Because it was her driver that she worked with was Scott. I was building engines for him back then. I don't even remember his last name now. But it was Scott. He got in trouble for a DUI
Yeah.
or something. And so, Jana, if you remember his last name, I still got a hat from that when I worked at Bill Davis. I was there 2 years when Ward Button.
Wad.
Yes, when he won the Daytona 500. That was my first Daytona 500. That was in 2002, I believe it was.
He had the best accent of anyone in NASCAR
Oh, yeah.
ever.
Yeah, I used to love when John Boy and Billy did their skits with the Ward Button.
Yeah.
It was so funny. And then she worked for Coors Corporation, and then the last was with the Mars family. So they still, Scott Wimmer, that's who it was. Thanks, Chad and
Wimmer,
Terry.
wow.
Yeah, that's one you don't hear very often. And Jenna, Scott Wimmer and Dave Blaney. Yes, Dave Blaney was our other driver, and then actually Hut Strickland came and drove for us too. So on the Hills Brothers sponsored car, and Dave Blaney was the Amoco for Dodge. I mean, something like that. All right, so Dickie says Rachel could call in. She could, but we're just about out of time. But if she wants to call in, we can do that. I don't know if Bill has a time frame.
I have no time
I'm going to
frame.
have to go home and do my real job.
Oh, you are. It's only 8:30. It's still, the night is still young.
I'm babysitting for Liz.
Oh, wait a minute. Liz is here.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Well,
We have an early call in the morning.
Oh,
Makes
do
us
you?
sound like we're important.
yes. Oh, well, all right, fine then. I guess maybe next time we'll just do some call-ins too, because we had Bill here, and that pretty much filled up our time, which was great, and it was super.
He's a legend.
Oh yeah.
He really is.
Absolutely, yes.
I'm trying not to fangirl over here too
super
much
happy.
about this. 'Cause
Well, I'll tell you what, though, Bill, he's been coming around Statesville quite a bit because he come in when we had Red
Good
Dirt
music.
Revival. Especially anytime we had Red Dirt Revival.
Anytime Red Dirt Revival's here,
It's a shirt. There you go.
that's my
right.
boys right there.
I have to send this video to Robert Elliott and show him
yeah,
his.
absolutely.
He's probably.
They
his,
were so good.
They're great.
Yeah. And if you probably heard that we're gonna have Daryl Harwood in.
Yes.
And
Daryl's
then-
good.
Yeah.
Easy.
And we had Eric Upton, who was Daryl Harwood's guitar player. So he'll be
And you're
back.
having Wendy this week, right?
Wendy Wooten's tomorrow, or Thursday. Sorry, that's not tomorrow. Thursday. But we had Daryl Harwood's drummer playing with Red Dirt Revival. But we had Clinton Buck and Robert Elliott. Yeah, they are great. I love seeing them. We went out to Dixie Classic Fair and saw them.
Yeah, we saw him there
last
with.
year. Oh
Tucker.
yeah, you were
Yeah,
there too.
I was there, yeah.
That's right. See,
Yeah.
where the music goes, Bill goes. So,
I go with
Small
music.
world.
so I'm saying he'll be coming in here and seeing us quite a bit. I'm sure coming up. All right, so thanks everybody so much for tuning in. Don't forget to check out dhamim.com and check me out on Twitter, Instagram, dhamim, and all that good stuff. And thanks to Bill,
You're welcome.
and thank you so much,
Good to be here.
Dawn.
You're welcome.
And if people want to
Nice to
contact,
meet you, Dawn.
I guess
Nice
if
to
people
meet
want
you,
to
Bill.
contact you, they can message me and I'll.
There you go. Forward it to him.
That's
But
right.
I do honestly do still. I should have mentioned this earlier.
Yeah, go for it.
I feel good about a lot of the fans. I'm still getting the race
Yeah.
cards
Yes.
to sign.
Yeah.
Wow.
And of late, because of the coronavirus thing,
Yeah.
I've had a lot of mothers and fathers send cards to get them signed, saying that they were home with their child and they were hunting something to do.
Oh.
So they decided to go through all their old boxes and got out all their cards.
Yeah.
And they're making their kids race card booklets now.
Oh yes.
So that's
really
awesome.
cool.
And I have received, usually it's around Christmas when I get to
Yeah.
most of them,
Yeah.
but over the past 2 months, there's been a lot of cards come. And I do not mind signing them.
Yes.
So it's P.O. Box 4598, Mooresville 28117.
There you go.
I
And
don't mind signing the cards.
I'll have to bring mine in and have you sign them. I got a bunch of those cards, and before I got into NASCAR, I was eat up with just NASCAR. I was a huge NASCAR fan.
Yeah.
And I mean, I loved it, and I collected cards, and I still have them, of course, and the little cards.
I still have the little cars, yeah.
I've got them in books and all that kind of stuff too. So, yeah, it's a good thing. All right, so we got lots of thank yous coming in. Rachel Robbins says, "Thank you, fans, for joining in tonight." Tracy says, "Dawn needs to be your time management person. Since you listen to her, I get ignored."
I love you, Tracy.
Yes. Janice says, "Thanks everyone for tuning in." Rachel, that's fun, right, Paul? And then Dickie Dennis says, "Have a wonderful evening." And what did Scott say? Scott said, "Great show. Please be kind to each other." And so, Rachel, thanks, Rachel, Terry, Chad, everybody for tuning in. Kiki, yes, and Giggles. I'm sure Giggles is listening intently, just kind of looking around.
Giggles
and
probably knows
scratching.
more about NASCAR than any parrot
Yes.
on the planet.
Yes, probably so. That's a good point. All right. Thanks, everybody, so much. And y'all have a great night and a great rest of the week. And tune in to WAME Radio. Check us out on WAMEradio.com. Tune in to the Billy Buck Morning Show for mornings from 6 to 10. And then tomorrow's the Delaney's Double Clutch and Tuesday with Hash from 5 to 6 to get you home. So, and we'll be here on Thursday with Wendy Wooten. And then on Friday, we have a big event called Scan. So you can tune in on WAME Radio on YouTube and find us on there
You're having
every
Danny
morning
and
and
Jason
every
on
evening.
Wednesday, right?
Yes,
Still
and then we have the
Piedmont Folkways?
Piedmont Folkway radio show on Wednesday evening, and I'll be sitting right here, and we'll have Danny
Word for the
Wooker
Lord.
and Jason Wood. That's right,
You
yes.
should come back for that, Bill.
Sir, yes, you're always welcome to come out and join us. All right, thanks everybody so much for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next time.
Just